My kids decided they were going to homeschool this year, so I wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about homeschooling. This is the second time we've homeschooled in their elementary school career, and one of the things I hear a lot from parents when I tell them they homeschool is that I can never do that. And there's a lot of misconceptions around homeschooling, so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some of those misconceptions and how you can also homeschool if you really, really wanted to, and that it's actually not as hard as you think it is, and how the benefits of actually homeschooling. So if your kid is wanting to homeschool or you yourself wanting to homeschool, you'll find it actually really, really awesome and lots of good benefits and really, really easy to do. Probably easier than what you think. But let's kind of get into what I think is the top 5 things that people get hung up on regarding homeschooling, and what I hear all the time from parents when I tell people that I chose to homeschool or my kids chose to homeschool. One thing I hear a lot from parents is that, oh my gosh, I could never do that because I'm not a teacher and I don't want to be my kid's teacher. You actually don't need to be your kid's teacher. You actually don't need to know every single thing, okay? There's lots of different types of homeschool. For instance, there is private school affidavit, which basically means that you are your own school. But there also is charter schools where you have a community of people that can help you homeschool. You don't have to do everything yourself. There's tons of curriculum out there. There's tons of programs out there. There's tons of class out there, especially for homeschool students, where you can have your student do those type of activities and somebody else is going to teach them the valuable knowledge and the skills that you probably don't know yourself. Of course, you can always be the teacher for some things, but you don't have to be an expert in everything because there's resources for that, especially made for homeschool students. I really want to talk specifically about the charter aspect because that's kind of what I do in my homeschooling for my kids. So you can apply to be part of a homeschool charter school. And those homeschool charter schools usually assign you a homeschool teacher. Now that homeschool teacher is not there to teach your kids things, but they're there to kind of guide you on what is necessary to help your kid through their homeschooling journey. So the teacher is basically there saying, hey, your child is in 5th grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade, whatever level they are, this is what your state requires them to learn. And this is what I recommend for curriculum to help your child learn those things, you know? So you can choose one curriculum and do that, or you can piecemeal curriculums. When we did homeschooling the first year, I remember we did a variety of different things, right? We did journaling for writing. We did reading eggs and math seeds, the program for them to learn reading and writing. And then we also did science boxes and science kits for science, and history boxes and history stuff for history. We did classes for physical activities. So you can piecemeal a whole bunch of things. It could be a variety of physical classes that they go in person 1 to 2 hours a week. It could be co-op. It could be an online program that you really like, but they don't have to do the online program for every single subject. You can choose 1 or 2 subjects. So they're not sitting at the computer for a extended period of time, right? They might do an online class for 2 times a week for like an hour or something like that. So you don't have to do one curriculum for everything. You can piecemeal your curriculums based on what works for your child, which is what's great about homeschooling, and which is what's great about having a charter, because your homeschool teacher is not there to tell you that you have to do one curriculum. They're there to give you suggestions and to give you what has worked best in the past for their student and the grade level that your child is at. They're also there to tell you what your child needs to learn and what your child needs to know at their grade level. So you're not going in blind, you're not going in with no guidance. I think that's one of the things that parents are very, very, very scared about, because they're thinking that they have to go in knowing what their child needs to learn, knowing what grade level their kid needs to be at, and knowing if their kid is behind or on par with everything. And you don't, because your home charter is there to support you through your homeschooling process and to kind of give you guidance of things that maybe you don't know about and what the state requirements is regarding for your child's education. Everything you do for homeschooling has to come out of your pocket, which is so untrue. The funds that you get for sending your child off to public school actually goes back to you. You get a stipend every year, and that stipend you can use towards homeschooling things, whether it be for classes, whether it be for supplies, whether it be for field trips or whatever, right? So your child actually gets to choose kind of what subject they can use their funds for. Now, there are some guidelines regarding this, right? Usually the vendors that go with your homeschool charter has to be approved first. Look on your charter's website and see who's approved and who's not approved. But usually if they are an approved vendor, your homeschool charter funds can pay for that. So what I mean is that if your kid does karate, for instance, and they are registered with your homeschool, guess what? Your funds can pay for their karate. Or if your kid really wants to learn how to code, for instance, well, if that coding program is approved with your homeschool vendor, it can pay for them to learn how to code. It could pay for their curriculum. It could pay for classes they want to take. Homeschool charter can pay for a lot of different things, and you'll actually find the stipend that they do give you every single year is actually a lot, and you will end up with extra at the end of the year. What I really love about it is that you can kind of piecemeal what you want them to learn. For next week, I'm having my kids take a cooking class because they're very interested in cooking. And I'm also putting them in a language arts class and also a literature class. So there's a lot of different things you can use your homeschool funds on, and that funds goes directly back to you, which is such an awesome resource. And I wish more people knew about that, because if you knew that you could use your homeschool funds on whatever your kids are interested in, whatever your kid needs work on, and also your curriculum that doesn't have to come out of your pocket, I think it would put a lot of parents' mind at ease. Socialization. I hear a lot of that people are so scared that their kids are not going to be socialized, and that there's a stigma about like kids being really, really weird when they're homeschooling. My thing about that is that there are a lot of kids in middle school and high school that are kind of considered outcasts. I wasn't the coolest person when I was growing up. So why would we consider kids that are homeschooled weird? Just because maybe they're a little bit shy, not the coolest kid on the block, but there are more uncool kids or more kids that are not considered cool than there are cool kids, right? So I think that, when we put that kind of those homeschool kids in a box, it just seems really odd to me when we say those things, because homeschool kids get tons of socialization. Again, they're going to classes and meeting people, they're using their funds on sports and things like that. So they get tons of socialization outside of the school environment. I honestly think sometimes, like in school, they're spending a lot of time waiting around. A lot of the teachers are spending a lot of time telling them to be quiet. So they're not actually getting as much socialization as maybe we think they are. Also with your homeschool charter as well, if you're going with a charter, there usually is a monthly meetup or like a quarterly meetup where they meet up with other homeschool kids. So you're going to be able to meet tons of friends. You're going to be able to have play dates because you kind of have your own schedule, right? So the socialization aspect, I would not worry about that, because their doors actually really open when they go do homeschool. You can join a co-op if you're wanting them to meet like with the same kids twice a week or once a week or whatever, if that's a concern for you. But there's so many different options out there to get your kids socialized and to get them to have friends. So I would not worry about the socialization aspect as much as some people want you to worry about it. The other thing I hear a lot is that people think that homeschool is like a free-for-all, that you can learn when you want or not learn what you want. You can learn whatever you want. And that's actually not very true. I was talking to you guys at the beginning of the video about how a homeschool teacher is there to tell you, like, this is what your child at their grade level needs to learn. How do they figure out if your kid is learning those things? Well, they do testing. They do quarterly testing or half school year testing, and they test your child to make sure that they are on grade level. So you're not going in blind. You're not going in, doing a free-for-all. There are certain guidelines that you do have to meet and that your child also does have to meet to kind of meet the state requirements. So your kid gets tested and your teacher can tell if they are on grade level or not. If they're not on grade level, guess what? We can talk about it. We can say, hey, they're not doing really great in reading or whatever. These are some ideas that we can do to kind of get them up to par for their grade level. So they usually do it during the school year and also at the end of the school year, just to make sure that your kid is on track for their grade. So it's definitely not a free-for-all. Of course, you get tons of freedom with homeschooling. So your kid's not going to be behind. Your kid's probably going to be ahead because they can learn as fast as they want, and it's at their own pace. Last thing I want to talk about is the hours of homeschooling. I think a lot of people get scared because they're just like, well, I can't dedicate 6 hours to homeschooling because I work all day or whatever. So, I can't do that because I don't have the time because I also have a job, right? Well, actually, in homeschooling, you don't have to do the 6 to 8 hours that they normally would do at regular school. I feel like at school sometimes it's just kind of like a waiting game. They're waiting for other kids to be done. They're waiting for other kids to finish their work. When you only have one child finishing their work, they learn at their own pace. They can be as fast as they want or as slow as they want. And generally, most homeschool days is less than 4 hours. So if you think about that, a lot of the time it's kind of like you just kind of guiding them through what's going on, especially when they're a little bit younger. You know, you're just basically saying, hey, it's 10 o'clock, you need to get on to your history lesson. And that could be an online program, that could be a booklet that they're currently working on, that could be a subscription box they're working on. And so you just make sure that they know where all their materials are and make sure they're doing that assignment at the time that they're supposed to be doing it. But you're not really there supervising the whole time, and you shouldn't really be doing that. And like I said again, most of the time you're getting it done sooner than most kids would do it in a regular school setting. So generally your school day is not going to be as long as you perceive it to be. It's not going to be 6 or 8 hours. So if you're actually thinking about homeschooling and you're dreading doing it because you're like, oh my gosh, I can't dedicate that much time, just remember, the time that you dedicate to it is not as much time as it would be in a school setting. Well, those are my top 5 misconceptions about homeschooling. Hopefully that kind of gives you an ease of mind if you are thinking about going to the homeschool program and giving you a little more insight on how to homeschool your child. If you have any questions, make sure you post that comment below and I will be happy to answer it in a different video. Talk to you next time. Bye.